Share screen. Set. Screen 2.
How are we going to do that?
Allow cancel.
Oh, perfect.
Open and Zoom meetings. Oh, have you already done that?
Yeah, I've done it.
I'm going to
It's going to be
But it, to be fair, it only took about 5 minutes. Seriously,
Yeah, I know.
because I'm just concerned about the date, how much we put in, how much we spent. And then these are just literally proposed.
You handle that. Do I propose it?
Yeah, I think so.
I just have to make sure that.
I can't do that. You've got to propose me. I can't propose this.
No, but you say somebody's got proposed it, and then be quiet. Embarrassing.
Yeah. But we're going to do it as a consider type thing.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Does anyone know about Zoom? I don't know what is going on here. So I've got, are we zooming
Launch
it?
a meeting?
There's Tracy's coming on.
This one?
Tracy. So this is the meeting here, but why can't I? It's already.
Why do
up.
you need meeting controls?
I don't know. What?
They're here.
Oh, it's like it's done it twice. Oh. So that's the meeting. It's already started. So they may be able to hear us.
Shut that.
Yeah. Maybe just start it again.
So like when you hovered there, it came with start.
Start.
Launch meeting. Is it in one of these?
It's already.
Yeah.
It's already on, isn't it? It's saying that it's already.
Sorry.
That's that. That's that. That's that. That's that. That's there. Launch meeting.
Hang on, go launch meeting, go cancel. Because normally it just comes up with the screen there, doesn't it?
Why is it not? Start. Okay.
Don't, no, hold on a sec.
Because when I
Launch
said
there.
launch, yeah, but then it says that.
Cancel. Cancel that. Have you done a Zoom meeting on this before?
On this computer, this is Claire's.
I've got my
Join from your browser.
Yeah, go from that.
Right, there you go. Stay. Oh, so they're already seeing it.
Good.
So they're already seeing it. That's the not there is currently host reclaiming, so that's already there.
Host.
Join or
Okay, it's 4 people. Yeah, done.
do it done?
Admit all.
Yeah.
I'm just.
You good to go?
Yeah, I'm just going to allow microphone. Yeah.
We're ready to get started.
Yeah.
Hi everyone. Good evening. Thanks everyone for coming. Great to see so many of you here. Thanks for coming out to support tonight. Whether you're trustees, staff, supporters, partners, activists, part of the community. Tonight is actually our AGM, our second only AGM. And we've got a bit of sort of official business to do at the end of tonight, which you're welcome to join for. But before that, we've got three speakers to introduce you to, and I'm going to introduce those in a second. Actually, I'll just get on with it right away. The first speaker doesn't really need any introduction. It's Plastic Free's own superhero and movie. He's going to tell you a little bit about the past year and a bit about the coming months, and then I'll step up again and introduce the other speakers.
Yeah. Hello everyone, thank you for all coming to hear about our work. So this presentation is basically going to be a bit of what we've been up to the last year. Some of you, if you've got the impact doc for the last year, might have already seen a lot of this, so I'll try and skip through it pretty swiftly and just try and focus on all the really good bits. But yeah, thanks again. It's so great to see so many friendly faces and people I don't know as well. Some support we're doing. And I suppose it's just to reiterate, obviously, the work I'm about to present to you is obviously I'm sitting here presenting it, but there's a whole load of other people that go that work with me, and Anne-Marie's my basically wife. Hello. We've got Joseph here, who's our education, in charge of our education, growing education package. I've got Tia, she's not quite here, but she's in charge of our comms. Who else have I got? Chair of our trustees. I've got Andy Clee over there, strapping a machete in his face. He's also one of our trustees, but pretty much full-time member of staff as well. Can't get him out of the office. And then we have Tom here, who's just working on our new sustainable business resource, which we'll hear a bit more about in a minute. As well. So if we've gone from the last time we did our AGM, we had 2 members of staff. So now we've gone from 2 to 5 in the last 10 to 12 months. This is quite an exciting step forward too. And really, next slide.
Yes, so you were just slight logistical
Oh.
issues. I can't move the mouse.
Hey, that's
Is it
fine.
moving? Is it moving?
Yeah, it's fine.
Okay.
Yeah. So just for those of you that don't know, obviously this is our mission, so tackling plastic pollution head on, doing it by cleaning up the environment and actually raising awareness. One of the key things that enable us to actually do that is to try and inspire reconnection with nature, and we do that via different ways, mainly education. And this is to enable, obviously, facilitation of sustainable behaviour change. This is how do we actually provide tools for our community, and we're always trying to come up with new ways to be able to do that. Obviously, it's no good in just telling people what they should be doing when they don't actually have the tools to do the right thing. So that's a massive part of the growth of what we do. And the reason we do this is to accelerate the growth of the environmental engagement and action across North Devon to deliver a radical transformation towards a healthier relationship with the natural world. And I think part of what Plastic Free North Devon, obviously on the surface, when we talk to people, sometimes think that we're just about reducing plastic. That's just about kind of the tip of the iceberg. Plastic for us was always like a really good engager. It's a thing that got everyone super stoked and engaged with the fact that we were destroying our planet. I mean, Blue Planet 2 back in 2017 was actually probably the kind of, I suppose, the tipping point for people, the public awareness in terms of, I think it's over 80% of the kind of British population saw Blue Planet 2. So there was a real change in, I suppose, public opinion and awareness about some of the issues that we're facing. And obviously, Plastic Free North Devon started just after that, so we were able to kind of jump on that wave. But actually, it's been a massive journey in terms of plastic again. It's not the thing that you can see, but actually, it's all the stuff that's underneath it that it's a symptom of our society, basically, rather than the issue itself. Switch to the next one. So these were our aims for 2021. We were going to try and do all these things, which we pretty much did. So ongoing education, so we connect and inspire residents and visitors. We had lots of community events, and that ranges from community cleans, repair cafes, film nights. We launched, we're in our 3rd year of our business campaign, so we continue to do that, which I'll talk a bit more about in a minute. We did some lobbying, trying our hand at lobbying this year. Our bodyboard activities, so some of you might know that we launched a bodyboard campaign back in 2020, so we continued to work on that into 2021 and actually delivered a petition to Parliament. We are working with lots of events, and where am I, number 6? Community collaboration. So continue to work with councils and local groups and organisations like the Northern Coast Pfnd, the Biosphere, Water Countryside Centre, and other groups around North Devon. And then we've developed our Sustainable Business Network and resource, which again I'll talk about a bit more about in a minute. And then we've obviously been trying to work to make as many events as we can plastic free and much more sustainable. And we've done that over the last couple of years via setting up a water bar and introducing useful cups and toolkits to events across the region. Next slide. So ongoing education, I'm not going to read all of this because it's essential what we've been doing. But essentially this year we got some funding from the Northern Pfnd to develop 3 films, and they were essentially to reconnect people with what's on our doorstep. So often when we talk about preserving our wildlife and conservation and things in our oceans, it's something that's quite far removed, it's something that happens somewhere else. So what we wanted to do is really try and connect people with what's on our doorstep. And the idea, I think it was Andy's wild idea of doing it on one of his podcasts or Zoom calls he'd been watching a couple of years ago, and we had this idea about VR. So we started on it last year a little bit, and this year we kind of got 3 films made. So one of them is Diving with Lundy Seals, which some of you may have seen already. We've got a rock pool one, which is kind of the secret life of rock pools, and the other one is kind of a river to sea journey. And this is all part of what we call our Ocean Explorer programme. So we use it to engage people. We've been taking it to events mainly this summer, lots of different school groups and community groups, but it's been quite ad hoc in terms of how we kind of use, I suppose, these films. And actually, we only had 1 film up until today, so now we've got 3. So our summer engagement's going to be a lot more interesting for people that are coming to see us, for one. So that's just one aspect, so kind of our public outreach. And then the other thing that we've done is we visited 43 summer events in the 6 weeks of the summer holidays. We took 14 Year 9 students to Lundy, and again, this was about giving people the opportunity to experience maybe a part of North Devon that they haven't experienced before. And again, it's all based around this kind of, if no one will protect what they don't, no one will protect what they don't care about, and no one will care about what they've never experienced. So this idea that not everyone in North Devon has been to many of the areas that we're lucky to have on our doorstep. In fact, not many people have actually even been to some of the beaches in our area. So this is kind of about raising the profile and kind of making things feel a bit more accessible to lots of people. So we got the schools to select the children, which was kind of their deal. We had like 2 or 3 students from each of the secondary schools. Really, really good results. They absolutely loved it, obviously. And then the idea was that they actually came on and volunteered with us over the summer. So they basically helped them with our outreach, helping with the rock pools and the VR kits and all that sort of stuff. So it was kind of like I suppose, a staged thing. And some of them are coming back to do some work experience with us in June, and are really keen to keep on volunteering with us. So it's been quite a nice kind of closing the loop, I suppose. And we're hoping we've managed to get a bit of funding from the North Devon Biosphere to develop our schools programme. So actually, at the moment, we're building it, but in March time, we'll be going to as many secondary schools as we can, and we'll be delivering schemes of work for Key Stage 3 and for Key Stage 4, which basically cover all sorts of exciting issues, but it's mainly about giving people making people aware of the responsibility they have with their local area and how they can get involved, and looking at opportunities and careers within the environment. So that's really exciting. We've never actually had a really detailed schools package. We've always kind of done quite ad hoc stuff with schools. So the fact that we've been able to work with a consultant to deliver and make these schemes of work is really amazing. And yes, what else are we doing? Next slide. So this is a really good snapshot actually of our OEs. Probably I should have shown you that really. So these are the guys in the OE. This is one you don't before, which you would have seen at events. And this is some of our resources that we're using in the summer. One of the things with the ocean, obviously we're taking people with VR, but we're also providing opportunities for rock crawling. We do a lot of work with Park Dean. Green Holly, as she's here, beach ranger. So we'll often go down to the beach, we'll take them rock crawling, she'll do some dune restoration and kind of beach conservation stuff with them as well. We've got a really good partnership going with lots of beaches to be able to deliver lots of really nice activities. Next slide. Community events. This is some of you might have seen it. We set up a repair cafe last year. Really exciting. Really one of my favourite things that we set up last year. It's been, I think with COVID, obviously COVID only really kind of just I suppose stopped maybe middle of last year. It's not stopped, but it had, it lessened. We were able to kind of start doing things again in a very slow way. So we set up a repair cafe, and it was great because actually what we realised over COVID was that we couldn't keep talking to people about reducing plastic, although we could. It was very much like putting pressure on individuals to do something that they couldn't really control at the time. I think we had a couple of doctors and nurses to swing by our the coffee shop that we next door to with our offices, and they take their reusable cup every day, and they would just have a big rant one day about, I'm doing this every day, but actually I'm going through like 12 aprons, 4 masks, and 12 pairs of gloves. So it kind of really is like home with us, and that the single-use plastic thing there's a time and a place for us to be talking about it. And actually there's other things in our society that we can be helping with, and fast fashion is another big massive topic for us. And a lot of the plastic and stuff that we find in our environment is very much microplastic stuff that's coming out of our washing machines. A lot of that comes from cheap, disposable, fast fashion clothing. So okay, well, why don't we set up a service that enables people to kind of come together and actually fix the stuff and maybe learn something from someone else? Because a lot of those skills have been lost as well. So it was a two-pronged with the repair cafe. It was providing a service so people could actually get stuff fixed rather than shipping away, and actually bringing different members of the community together to actually kind of address obviously the environmental problem, but actually trying to address some of the social issues as well. So it's been really positive, and we're hoping to start working with the membership that's been set up, and we're wanting to kind of bring together a couple of other aspects. At the moment, we're just kind of doing sewing, because that's the skills of the ladies. By the way, I don't do any sewing. We need to get you doing the sewing, actually. Yeah, I don't do any of the sewing. Me and Annie just make the tea and coffee. But yeah, we've got some really, really talented ladies, and we've raised quite a bit of money from them, actually. I think every week we raise probably every session that we have, and we raise over £100 in donations and stuff. So it's been a really good thing. Okay, next one. So yeah, this was some part of you might be aware, but in November, obviously, we have a global day of action. And I painstakingly been trying to organise a protest, not a protest. It was a march, a very friendly, legal march between Wards and Staunton. Because obviously the global day of climate action, and we wanted to do something that was relevant to North Devon. And one of the things that has been talked about for a long, long time and been worked on is the fact that we need a safe cycling route between Wards and Staunton, and actually a cycle route connecting all of the beaches. Obviously not happening, stuck in the mud somewhere. Well, I know where it's stuck, but it is stuck. But I thought we had a really good opportunity to draw attention back into that and actually kind of give the campaign a bit of a boost. And obviously through COVID, I think everyone had really nicely experienced what it was like to actually cycle safely. All the kids were able to go on the roads, but that road is notoriously not very nice. But anyway, long story short, I got my wrist slapped, and we realised that we couldn't put the charities name on the line for doing such illegal activities. So we ended up doing a gathering on the beach. It was brilliant. It brought together the guys from XR. We had Martin back, who's a chair, vice chair of the AMD. Do some speaking, some kind of have pop-up talks. We had cycling away from Ilford, we raised a cop. So we had lots of really nice speakers, had some music, we did some stand-up. So really nicely kind of brought everyone together, and I think it really kind of gives a bit of a boost. Because there were lots and lots of people buzzing in North Devon in different little circles that are all pretty passionate about doing something for the planet. So that was quite nice. And just for the record, that we are going to do this cycle legally in a legal way. Then this is where we can do it, hopefully in the summer. So I've just started the ball rolling for that again. So you'll all be invited. That's just the start. So it's 1.5. It's another nice stand up. Next slide.
We've just got a slight issue. We've got 2 people waiting in the waiting room, but we can't admit them for some reason.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Stop. I'll just carry on.
Carry on.
So the Vista campaign is our 3rd year now. Anne-Marie's literally she's leading on that. She's just kind of bringing together the resources for this year. This last year we reached 118,000 visitors. And we also managed to sell 10 of our wooden belly boards as part of that campaign. And that was basically trying to get accommodation providers to put the belly boards in their accommodation so that they didn't have to feel like they had to go and buy stuff when they were coming on holiday. And the idea behind the visitor campaign, I mean, that's just the front of all the leaflets. And we didn't print anything last year because of COVID, but the idea is that we have like a private page on our website, and we have about 20 resources, and people can kind of pick and mix what they want to put on their own materials for their own accommodation. So often you have a welcome pack, obviously, and not everyone wants everything branded up as plastic-free North Devon, and we realised that as well. And actually we wanted businesses and whoever was organising that accommodation to actually feel like they were putting it front and centre of their own messaging. So that's been really super positive. And this year we're trying to, we are working at our kind of trying to get cleaners and like the holiday managers involved in actually what they do within their business, rather than just using it as an opportunity to spread awareness. It's actually getting the cleaners thinking about what products they're using. So we've got a workshop next week with, I think we've already got about 25 people signed up for that as well. So it's great. Next slide. Volleyboards. So we did lobby to ban cheap volleyboards. I don't know how am I doing on time.
About 4 minutes.
Okay, great. So we did the volleyball lobby, which you probably saw last year. We had 6,800 people sign our ban cheap volleyboards. It wasn't quite enough to get to 10,000. Which is what I think what we needed to get it actually discussed. But we did get some responses from the government, which weren't particularly what we wanted at all. So we kind of pushed back on that. In terms of moving it forward, we're going to continue to try and work any time that we see them being sold. We're going to continue to try and get businesses to stop selling them. We've got posters that businesses can put up in their shops to recognise that they're not selling it. And then we're going to continue to use our lobbying experience, which we hadn't really done. We hadn't really done much lobbying, but I think we realised the power that we can have actually as a collective, and actually when we pick a single issue. So we definitely learned a lot from that campaign, and especially going forward, we're going to use that experience. Next slide. This was our body board activity in terms of our board. So like I said, we put them in we teamed them up with our accommodation providers, but we also got Marsden's, so Original Cottages actually sponsored, I think 8 of them. So we've got four free hire boards at our office, and we've also got 4 for free hire at Putsborough, so people can at any point go along and try them out for free. It was again trying to remove the barrier for people being able to try a wooden bodyboard or buy one, because they are quite expensive. Our wooden bodyboards retail at £80, and actually the kind of really, really cheap, really low end polystyrene bodyboards are between £5 and £10. So there is a massive price difference. So we're again trying to get the tri-step without the barrier of the cost. And then we're also looking to install our toy shed. So you probably might have seen we've got a toy shed at Croy Beach. And again, that's to encourage people, rather than buying stuff, to actually go to the toy shed and see what's in there. And again, trying to just get people to reduce the amount of things that they consume whilst we're on holidays. And North Devon Council, through their Welcome Back Fund, have just given us some money to be able to put 6 more around North Devon, which is really exciting. We're just kind of waiting on where exactly they're going to be. But they're all going to be quite bespoke. We're going to get some of the local kids involved with decorating them, all that sort of stuff. So again, it'll be a nice little hub and a reminder. And I think with all these things, it's kind of creating the linkages. Like, one thing isn't really enough, but if you're sending out leaflets, or they're kind of seeing a sign that they're entering the biosphère when they come down the link road, and then when they get to their accommodation, they're seeing, information about protecting the environment, and then they're going into their local surf store and they're seeing these protect our playground with bodyboards, and they're going down the beach and they're seeing toy sheds or Holly doing a beach cube or what around us. It really starts to join the dots, and I think not one thing is going to solve any of this crisis, but the kind of collective and the kind of increased activity of this stuff going on is kind of what's going to actually change locally. Next slide. Community collaboration. Obviously, this is just us working with as many people as we can. We're quite good at that and say yes to everyone. Won't be too much. But yeah, our closest partners are probably the North Devon Coast KOMB and the Biosphere in terms of the things that we work on together, but we also do the Countryside Centre and the different beaches. We did have a really solid consortium with lots of different organisations that we kind of facilitate. Kind of fell on its head during COVID, so we're just kind of looking at ways of how we can kind of either get that going or kind of go into another network that's doing pretty much the same thing. But because North is so full of amazing organisations and quite a lot of networks already, there's risk of kind of recreating the wheel when there's already so much going on. So I think at the moment it's kind of partnering with the best person that we can to kind of deliver the outcomes that we want is the way we're going with it. Next slide. So this is just a bit about us. So in terms of sustainable business, obviously develop and pilot, protect our playground, Sustainable Business Collective. And this came about because one of the things that we found in North Devon is obviously there's lots of SMEs, small and medium-sized businesses that normally don't maybe have anyone within their business to be able to work on sustainability. And we wanted to pilot one of our business supporters, Turnstiles Design, his name's up there, Steve. He gives us quite a big donation every year, and he was also keen to offer some of his time voluntarily to help us look at how he might help other businesses develop sustainability within their businesses. So he'd gone kind of top to bottom with his business, gone through lots of different things. So we basically drew up a template program to help other businesses do the same, and we employed Tom to help do that.
Sorry.
Brilliant. Oh.
Something's happened with the.
Okay.
I can't move the mouse. I'm sorry. She didn't even notice. That's the thing.
I didn't even notice.
There you go. That's fine. There you go.
That's fine. So we just got our first client, actually, which is really exciting. So we've got to know going about whether we were actually going to get anyone. And this isn't a free service by any stretch. It is very much as cheap as you can probably get. And the idea behind that is obviously that businesses need to be able to value, need some sort of value for businesses to buy into it. And obviously it does take quite a lot of time to obviously sit with that company and go through not just plastic, but go through sustainability right from the top. So we're going to see how that goes. We're going to obviously continue to spread the best practice and knowledge share by making an emerging green economy group, which Martin's setting up as well. And we're also going to collaborate with others to offer roadmaps for schools to look at carbon reduction and sustainability strategies, as well as running businesses. So very much a growing field of ours, I suppose, and just something that obviously we're still signing off businesses plastic free through the SAS programme, which we've been doing for the last 3 or 4 years since we set up. But yeah, like I said, it's not enough really. We need to kind of. And I think with the business side of stuff, it's if you can get a business to put stuff front and centre of their business, and then they have 50, 60, 70 employees, the ripple effect as those employees and into the families is a lot quicker than us banging on about them remembering a reusable drinks bottle from kind of a social media position. So I think for us as traction and change and the level that we need it to happen, it needs us and other organisations all doing this. So it's kind of like where we're putting our energy for the moment with businesses. Yes. Volunteers, massive part of what we do. We can do what we do without all the volunteers. And one of our plans after our last AGM was to kind of rebuild on that. I think we've done a pretty good job, especially with the Repair Cafe. That's completely attracted a whole new type of people that just got whole new skills and personalities, and yeah, just all great stuff to the thing that we offer. So we've got 24 new of them. We had 12 specific Ocean Explorer volunteers recruited as part of our summer outreach. We've got 6 Cleansing Clean ambassadors scattered around North Devon, and these are people that are kind of really keen on organising their own clean and galvanising their own community to kind of clean up their areas. So a lot more linking in. 10 general plastic free volunteers. Don't know who they are, probably you. And then we between all the beach cleans and community cleans, a fair amount of numbers compared to previous years are actually really low. I mean, our normal sorting cleans we used to get between 100 and 200 people, I think, at most of our cleans. And this year's has definitely been massively dropped. I'd say the average group has been between 40 and 50. Still really good numbers, but yeah, we've still galvanised 520 people through our community cleans area as well. Plastic-free events, God. So again, lots of events happening across North Devon, and one of the things that we're really passionate about is making sure these events are a beacon of sustainability. Obviously, a place where the community comes together, and again, a really good touch point for the community to maybe learn something or learn new behaviour or get taught something about the environment. And we can do a lot around events. But the biggest thing that I think we did was create 2 guides a couple of years ago, which we sent out to whoever wants them. But we also recently been trying to lobby, we're working with North Devon Council to actually put a letter forward to the government to actually try and get, I suppose, I'm trying to explain this very well, try and get the license to get sustainability part of a licensing commitment. So when anyone gets a license for an event, essentially, they just get their license essentially based on maybe the 4 objectives that don't have anything to do with the environment. So there's no objective that relates to the environment. So one of the things that we asked to be put forward was an objective that related directly to that. We actually got a reply about a month ago, which wasn't the best reply, so we're kind of back to square one with that. But what it has done is it's the conversations that we had right up to the lead-up was made at council, North Devon Council, much more aware of how much more they can do in terms of their own house, although they can't legally require events to do anything because that's the licensing thing. They can kind of best practice thing forward a lot more kind of upfront rather than waiting for organisations like us to kind of chase events after, which is really good. And we're going to be like the festivals that happen in Braunton this year. We've got the summer festival and the Christmas fair. So Neil Hampstead, we've kind of been working with him on and off for a couple of years. He's always been a bit iffy about what he's going to do this year. He's gone full environmental with this. He's going to use apps for all of his events. He's going to put stuff on his website. People have to sign and take something when they sign up for their post. So that's the message step forward. And we wouldn't have been able to, we wouldn't have had that with him if we hadn't built up a relationship before. So I think one of the things that's really precious with us and what's really about us is the relationships that we've built up over the last few years, and that enables us to have those conversations to be able to change those. Next. I'm not going to talk too much about this, but this is a framework that we basically built up for people to buy in or support Plastic Free North Devon now. There's a few different ways. So basically we have our business supporters, which is like a monthly kind of like £20–40 a month. Then we have our impact maker, which means they give us a bit more money. And then we have our game changer, which means they give us a bit more money. If you flip to the next slide, Marie, you can see our current game changers, impact makers. So the Bermuda Foundation, heavily supportive of our Ocean Explorer programme, and that's how we were able to take those kids to Lundy. Pickwell Foundation have been giving us core funding since we started, and enable us to kind of go a bit crazy with our ideas and not very specific about exactly what we spend on it is, but means that we can be creative and do lots, I suppose. Turnstile Design, again, another really big supporter, and obviously volunteer within our SBR. And then North Devon Coast OMB, Coast and Moor, Phillibrook, also really big. Phillibrook actually bought our VR kits this year, our new headsets, and North Devon Coast OMB paid for our 3 films to be made, which some of you might have seen. And they also are funding our business campaign this year as well. So, and these are just some of the other organisations. So the top, maybe the top half are business supporters. So there's some of the 19 business supporters. We've got Sunside Studio here. She does all our graphic design and branding and website for pretty much next to nothing. The Pfnd Foundation, they're obviously funding the second half of our Ocean Explorer this year, which is amazing. So it means we can actually go into schools with a real kind of agenda, which is fantastic. Dry Road, we've been donating us a load of money this year from a load of sales that they, a big sale that they had in the summer. Braunton Country Centre for letting us have most of our events here, and for John, who's volunteering to come to all of our beach cleans. North Devon Council, they've been giving us, they gave us lots of money through their councillor grants this year to help us buy some new computers. We didn't even have any work computers until 2 months ago. Salt Rock, who gave us a really nice bit of donation at Christmas, so thank you for that. Staunton Beach, who literally support all of our beach cleans. Jack at that, she basically says yes anything we ever ask of him. Yeah, it was just, I mean, this and the other logo just kind of demonstrates the breadth of support we have across our community, and the growing support that we have as well. And it's, I suppose this is how we are able to do the work that we're able to do, and the way that we're able to have our impact across the community. So these I'm going to leave these. This is pretty much. So we had a bit of a strategy meeting at the end of 2021, and we kind of felt like when we first started talking with them, we didn't know how long we were going to be around. We didn't know whether we'd build. We didn't know whether we were in a flash in the pan. We didn't know what was going to happen. we got to the end of this year and we're like, okay, we're building on this, we're doing lots more. And we've got a lot to do in the next kind of 8 years when we think about the kind of global situation regarding climate change and all the other environmental issues that we face. And we believe Plastic 307 locally has a big part to play in increasing that awareness and developing that traction of change that's needed in our communities. So we kind of came up to actual strategic objectives for the next 5 to 10 years. And one of them is prevent plastic from entering North Devon's environment by 2030. That's a big swinging one. Not sure how we're going to get there, but we've got some ideas. Going to have to start farmers and fishermen a lot more, that's for sure. Support a just transition to a sustainable circular economy in North Devon. So that's kind of our business approach. And this one's a big one, really, the accelerated growth of the environmental engagement and action across North Devon. And that's going to kind of come from our education work that we do with schools, but also providing people an opportunity to learn more and obviously actually to be involved in what we're doing. Because we're going to need everyone. No one can rely on organisations like us, which I said is sort of the foundation, whatever. It's going to require every single one of us to do something. So the more opportunities we provide people to get involved, the more energy and I suppose the impact we're going to have. So thank you. I'll just leave you with this lovely picture of our Year 8 students from Ilfracombe Academy who we're currently piloting a project with. So these are our stars. We're doing an 8-week program with these guys. So we get them every 2 weeks for 2 hours a week. And we're taking them basically on a bit of a tour of North Devon to really kind of, it's like Ocean Explorer on acid, really. In a sense, but the idea is that I don't think we've ever had anyone or a group of people where we've had for longer than an hour or 2 hours. To get the same group of students for 2 hours every 2 weeks, and taking them to Lee Bay. So one of the here, what's his name, Andy again? So he'd never been to Lee Bay. Hayden, he'd never been to Lee Bay. We took him to Cray Point, he'd never been to Sand Dune. So just really amazing stuff. So they were climbing mud at Cray Point. They did a farm visit last week. They did some tree planting with the Biosphere the week before. So that this kind of, well, first of all, to be able to get schools to give you their students for 2 to 3 hours a week is pretty massive. And it was open to everyone as well. So it wasn't just a case of a few token students getting it. They opened it up to everyone. They had over 50 applicants. And then they all got selected on their own merits for a variety of reasons. But the most magical group of kids. And I suppose for us now, it's kind of now we've started this, how do we develop it and grow it? And actually, what's the journey for them going forward? So, okay, there's moving to now Year 8, but what's the next bit of Year 9 and then Year 10? And is there an environmental group, which hopefully there will be at some point, that they can go to locally to get more involved? So it's kind of thinking about how to develop that kind of line of engagement. And I suppose opening up opportunity for them as well, because actually Plastic 307 has only been here for 4 years, and we've already, there's 5 jobs going, and then and we're creating opportunities for people to get involved and get experience, so that when they go on to university or college, they can then say that they've done experience with us. So it's creating opportunities that weren't here before or on very small scale. So it's really exciting to see what it'll be like in the next 5 years. Next slide. And I'll just leave you with that quote, because it's my favourite.
I've lost my bet.
I've seen those impact slides or the 2021 slides a couple of times now, and always blown away by the amount of work that the team get through. It's a very small team. And Claire only mentioned it once, but we were coming out of a global pandemic, and we still managed to adjust, change direction, and get stuff done. More than we've done in previous years, just different things. And I think it's to Claire, Andy, Anne-Marie, Tia, the rest of the team, you know, to keep delivering in that sort of environment. It's been amazing. So Claire mentioned a couple of strategic partners. I'm going to introduce one of the speakers, Jenny Carey-Wood. 15 years Jenny's been doing development delivery in national and EU programs in rural and coastal areas. She is a manager of the, I'm reading from my notes here. Manager of North Devon Coast AONB, helped provide financial support is going to sound wise advice to Claire. She tells me that you're the first person she calls. Problem. And been very helpful and supportive of plastic free over the years. We're very grateful to you for that.
Thank you very much.
Thanks,
All right, well, that last session was a bit like watching Roadrunner on screen. So, and then, am I going to be more the sort of magic roundabout or saying a lot, but yeah, a bit laid back. So I was asked to talk a little bit about the sort of context within which plastic free is operating and what's going on in the kind of wider world. And obviously it's quite a biased view from where I'm sitting at the areas of outstanding natural beauty. So for those of you who don't know, it's I was looking for a little map somewhere. It's the coastal strip along North Devon and Torridge's coast that is the area of outstanding natural beauty. And we're at the core, if you like, of the biosphere, which is much broader that covers the two river catchments across the whole area from Dartmoor and Exmoor down to the sea. So we're just a little special bit of I suppose one of the big things that we do and we're involved in is protecting our playground. It's about looking at planning and development. And that's probably about just over a fifth of what we do in terms of time and money that we spend on responding to planning applications, trying to negotiate with our local planners locally, trying to make sure that planning is appropriate, that it's kind of sustainable development, and not trying to destroy both our environment and the fantastic high quality area it is to live in and work in. And so that's quite a big part of what we do. And it can be very challenging at times. And I have to say COVID did kind of initially knock things sideways, where I think the council was just saying yes to everything that had an economic benefit because they were very worried about our local businesses. But I suppose some of you have seen there's been a quite considerable change to a lot of the tourism activity in the area, and people have really gone for new opportunities and change things. And I suppose part of our agenda is to keep a balance in the area. And we want North Devon and Torridge to remain affordable places for people to come to live, to work, but also to visit. And there's been quite a big shift away from the kind of cheap and cheerful camping, bucket and spade, into much more upmarket luxury and some phenomenal, I'm sure you've noticed, the physical impacts, and Croyd is one of the most challenging areas at the moment. And it almost reduces Dave to tears because he absolutely loves this area and knows every inch of it. So it's been a very, very challenging time on that side. I have to say we've got a new planning team in North Devon Council, and there does seem to be a bit more of a balanced approach now. There's still a few things that sneak through that we do feel quite frustrated about. But that keeping that quality in terms of environment, quality of life, links into what Plastic Free tries to do in terms of protecting our environment from the more sort of day-to-day impact through the plastic issues. And so that's one of our big issues at the moment. I suppose the other thing is the big focus that, as Claire mentioned, on the HE targets of getting 30% of the area better protected for nature by 2030, and that's not very long away. And as some of you may know, the areas of outstanding natural beauty are part of England's ambition to say that those areas are protected for nature. But as many of you will know, we don't actually own or manage or control any land. We don't have much power to do with nature. It's very much dependent on landowners. But that is a big issue at the moment and a big push to us to do more for nature. So with our team of 2.5, plus a few extra people now and then, that's quite challenging given some of the other issues which we normally focus on. So I suppose historically we focused on landscape, on planning, on heritage, and on people. And now we're being asked to do nature, and climate, and farming. And I'm delighted to hear we're going to get a bit more funding for this coming year to sort of help us do some of that. So it's quite a challenging time, and as many of you know, the other big issue is obviously the transition to our farming and agriculture and the way we support farmers. And that's going to cause quite a few big issues in the area. We don't quite know which way it's going to go. A lot of farmers are a bit reluctant to face up to this massive change, the way their payments are paid, and how that will impact their farm business, but also how that will impact nature and people's access to the countryside. So that's another big sort of context for us. And we've got all this amazing work that Plastic Free does in terms of engaging people and connecting them with nature through campaigning and lobbying and understanding the impact of people. But we also need to look at the kind of policy side and the financial and business side, what's going on with the people who own most of the land. It was mainly privately owned. We've got some big patches of open access land along the coast path. And we've got some big estates who allow a lot of public access, but we don't actually have a right to some of that access. It's a kind of permission. And then we have a fantastic network of public rights of way and bridleways, etc. But these are all important things that we need to continue to protect and support. We've been given some money to work with farmers in this transition period. So that money is focusing on nature, on climate, but also on people and people's access and enjoyment and understanding and engagement with the natural environment. I think somewhere they're meant to produce food as well. And I think that's where there's a real tension, locally, because for most farmers that is their primary purpose. But obviously a lot of our farmers are involved with tourism, and then that links into the kind of 6 million or so visitors we get in this area and the impact they have. And again, that's vital what Plastic Free does in terms of engaging with that group. The other big issue for us at the moment is the government commissioned a review of our protected landscape, so looking at the national parks and the areas of outstanding natural beauty. And that review was done by Mr. Go's classmate, Julian Glover, who's a journalist who knew nothing about protected landscapes, but went on a massive learning curve, I suppose. We've now got a consultation at the moment, and some of you, if you want to look at it and respond to that, looking at what should our nationally protected, nationally designated landscapes be doing for people, for nature, for climate, and looking at some of the priorities, our powers and responsibilities, and that consultation is open until the 9th of April. As I said earlier, the government is looking to us to do a lot more, but only very slowly changing the kind of resourcing the way that we're supported. And obviously our A&B is very different to our local national park on Exmoor. They're a full local authority with full planning power, so it's a very different beast, if you like. But when you get the head of the national park coming out to the Wilkin coast and saying, actually your coast is much more beautiful than ours, and that's quite something to show the quality of the landscape and the quality of the places is equal. But it doesn't have the same protection and support. But even they don't control the land and what landowners do with it, so it's very challenging. So that's some of the kind of national things going on as a context for how we could be facing some quite significant changes in our coastal countryside, particularly with the changes to agriculture and maybe changes to the national park and the A&B. At a local, more local level, the government has asked all local authorities to start putting together nature recovery strategies to really make a difference for nature in our country. And Devon will be producing a strategy, but the Biosphere's already produced one. You can talk about that. Yeah. And this has been supported by some Devon-wide mapping of the important habitats across the area, and putting a much bigger focus on what do we need to do for nature, how can we protect and enhance and improve it. So that's been quite frustrating, a very slow process, and I was delighted that the Biosphere stepped up and said, we're just going to get on with it, we're going to put together a strategy for the area, we're not going to wait for them to do it across the whole country in each county. So they've got on with it, and we're all working together on taking forward that action plan. And prioritising the important things that need to be done locally. The other thing we've got is we're in the period of a review of our local plan. And as they tried to do last time, the 2 or 3 planning authorities are going to try to have a much bigger focus on environment and nature this time, and people. And this is really important because this local plan sets the framework for decisions locally about what happens to our communities and our villages and our towns and our businesses and our farming. So it's really important that people get involved with this local plan review, and there will be public consultations and information coming out. They tried to do it more sort of environmental last time, and the planning inspector knocked them back. And they're going to try and do that again this time. I think it's really important that we support their focus on doing that. So the next 3 years are really important time to input into getting the right policies and decisions in there as a framework for what we're all trying to do locally. And alongside that, we're meant to be doing a review of the A and B's management plan in the next couple of years, but we're waiting for the government to decide whether they might postpone it a little bit, because we've been reviewing the landscapes, they're talking about some changes, changing our responsibilities. The other thing I should mention is that today I submitted into the lottery, to the Heritage Lottery, to support a project that's about supporting wildlife action in our local communities across the 14 coastal parishes in the AONB. Obviously that won't affect all of you, but the Boltons in that area. And we're hoping to bring in some more people, more people on the ground who can help people actually put into action ideas or concerns or issues they want to address related to nature and wildlife. Have people on the ground rather than keep saying to people, oh, go and look online, there's lots of information online, there's lots of talks and information, and that's great at a certain level, but we want to take it a bit further. So fingers crossed we might get some people and some resources to do more work around that going forward. And that bit was informed by the visualisation study that we did with Plastic Free Devon and other local partners just after the first lockdown, when we asked people what was important to them, what might the new normal be like. Perhaps a bit naive at that stage, thinking about one lockdown and that's it. And we're going to transition to an easier space, which we didn't for quite a long time afterwards. But it was very interesting looking at people's responses in that study. And we had over 800 people reply. The priorities for things like creating a cycle path from Thornton to Salton, about spending more time outside. People really valued, recognised how important it was to get out of their houses and enjoy the outdoors and discover new places locally, as well as wanting to change their behaviour, recognising the impact they're having on the environment. So there's a whole range of issues in that study that provides us with some quite useful evidence. So for us, working at a kind of fairly strategic level, perhaps a bit remote from some of your daily lives, plastic free and organisations like it are incredibly important. They're very fleet of foot, they're very flexible, they're very responsive, they're in touch with a whole range of people day to day, whereas we sit in our offices most of the time, and we just don't have that kind of flexibility as part of a local authority. And that's where I think this connection between some of the public bodies and organisations across the area, and local charities and activists is really important, because there needs to be that feeding on down of ideas. We are officially not allowed to lobby and to campaign, and that gets very awkward sometimes, and some of you will know that Croy, for example, set up their residents' association to fight some of the planning issues locally, and I think we're very frustrated with us that we were jumping up and down and shouting and having more of an effect, but we're actually funded by the local authorities, and it does put us in a quite weird position. So again, I think the kind of campaigning and lobbying side that Plastic Free does is really important, because it counterbalances some of the behind the scenes work that we can do, and perhaps sharing some of the policy issues behind things. But it's invaluable to us to have organisations like yours. And I think that direct contact with the public, and this is why I put a lottery bid in, so we can have people to go out and do things and engage more directly, because we're a very small team. And that's been brilliant, the work that Biosphere's done recently with Pledge for Nature and some of their current projects. We're all a bit more out there doing things and more connected with people. I think we can become a bit remote sometimes. And I think the role of engaging volunteers is just really impressive, and although the numbers might have dropped this year, the turnout at events for plastic free is stunning. And I think people getting that experience, skills and knowledge to get through being involved with community organisations is invaluable in then feeding into other initiatives going on across the area. So I want to encourage you to keep inputting into your campaigning, your working, your training, your engagement with schools. Keep on delivering on the ground, because sometimes we struggle to do that. And we get distracted by policy documents, strategic meetings, and we really rely on you to keep us connected with people and to feed back information that is likely that Claire does think to call me when things need answering. And I think the sort of level of creativity that you can bring with this enormous range of people with your skills and knowledge is incredibly important, because sometimes we're not very creative. So we rely on you as much as perhaps you link in with us. So I would like to support what Plastic Free does. And it's been a great journey for the last few years, seeing how the charity's evolved and what it's achieved.
Thank you.
Obviously, it becomes strategic policy now. There's a lot about nature networks, environmental schemes, local plans. But what can you say about local plans? There's an opportunity to use networks to help them understand people we actually put all our more in policy on potentially create a public policy that gives the confidence to ask those questions, for example, in a way that we've not done before. Do you think that's something that as Plastic Free we should be thinking about moving forward?
Yeah, I think it is. I think, traditionally, probably very few people have commented or got involved with things like local plans. It's seen as an official document process. But I think there are opportunities, and working with your local councillors, it's really important to understand what they're looking at, what they're thinking. But we had a very brief presentation about it the other day, and I was quite encouraged with a slightly different approach this time. And a recognition that we've got something very valuable here, and we need to protect it and keep it available for everybody. So I think that's very important, and you do have access to a very wide range of people.
Thanks, Jenny. So the last speaker before we get into the exciting bit of some documentation is Nicola Corrigan, Ops Manager for the Biosphere Foundation, trustee of the Broughton Countryside Centre that we're hosted in tonight, Director of Energy 361, set up Regen Broughton, friend and advocate of Pfnd, and yet another superhero here from tonight.
Oh wow, thank you for that welcome. Well, yes, as Hamish mentioned, I'm from the North Devon UNESCO Biosphere. And I wanted to talk to you a little bit about the context of using the UNESCO designation and what it means to us locally. You know, we have this really fantastic environment here, which we all play and live in, but yet there's so many issues that we have to tackle. And I think you know, the good thing about plastic free is they recognise that all these issues are interconnected and that everyone is connected to nature, whether it might be through your business or the way you enjoy nature and go out in nature or access it. And so really that everything is connected to this much larger, bigger picture, and that we're part of really a worldwide network of UNESCO biospheres. And so we have really something which is very special here. So yes, I'll give you an overview of our current projects as well and how local communities can get involved. And we've just really been escalating all our projects and activities at the moment. You might have seen recently, we've now got about 15 people working for us for a whole different suite of projects that we're trying to work on to improve nature and environment and community connection to nature. So just a bit of context about the biospheres. So we're actually part of a network of biospheres, and there's over 700 biospheres globally, which cover 5% of the Earth's surface, and a quarter of a billion people live in those UNESCO biospheres. And the United Nations Educational, Scientific and Cultural Organization seeks to build peace through international cooperation. And I think that's a really important message, giving about what's going on elsewhere in the world, and you know, how can we bring that peace and security back to local scale solutions. So our UNESCO biosphere, so we're actually the first biosphere to be designated in the UK. We're now one of 7, and we've been going for 20 years. So it's our 20th anniversary this year. So we're planning a big celebration of that. But it covers 30% of Devon, and it goes right from the rolling hills of Dartmoor and Exmoor right out to past Lundy. So it covers a lot of our coast and countryside. So it really is a very big area. And at its core is the Braunton Borough, is a very, very important area, which we're very lucky to live right next door to. And of course, the North Devon Biosphere, we attract lots of visitors here every year, and our functions are about conservation, sustainable development and sharing knowledge. And importantly, you know, one of the reasons why I think Claire's invited me tonight is the way that we work in partnership with all our local organisations and different cultural, environmental organisations that are part of that. And we have a big partnership network, which is made up of local authorities, environmental organisations and cultural and community organisations, which feed into the UNESCO partnership. But as mentioned, we're facing lots of different pressures. Jenny's talked quite eloquently about the development pressure that's happening at the moment along our coastline. People want to move here, they want to live here. That's putting pressure on our resources and our land use. Bigger picture, obviously the climate and ecological emergency, but taking that at the local picture, we're going to be suffering more flooding, probably have drier summers. We obviously live on the coast, so we're going to be suffering from coastal squeeze. So there really are, these big issues really are coming home to roost at a local level. And, you know, we need to think about what we can do as our community to tackle these issues. And so other things that we need to think about are issues to do with diffuse pollution, which is coming from sources like agriculture, for instance. We need to manage our tourism so it's sustainable. You know, we've got huge pressures, especially in Braunton. If you live in Braunton, we have a huge traffic congestion in the summer, huge use of resources, and obviously that's a key thing which Plastic Free are trying to tackle. And then we have the depletion of our natural species and our loss of species. So there's been lots of loss of iconic species like breeding cuckoos and lapwings, and curlews are disappearing locally. So there are all these kind of key species which we need to help to protect. And you know, the impact of losing our wildflowers from our meadows and salmon from our rivers. So we need immediate action to tackle this issue, which is why we have our nature recovery plan, which is about protecting 30% of the land by 2030 to try and improve nature in the North Devon biosphere. We've also got issues about fuel poverty. We've got the highest rates of fuel poverty in England, so we really need to focus on what we can do about renewable energy and retrofitting our poor housing stock to make sure that we're energy efficient as possible. And also changes in our marine environment and community issues. We've got an older community, and we've still got lots of people, as been mentioned, that are disadvantaged and have barriers of access to nature, which we have to tackle. So the UNESCO Biosphere designation is all about recognising the natural capital that we have in our natural environments and looking to nature to provide solutions to tackle some of these issues. And you might have heard recently we were lucky enough to get a 1.4 million bid to progress lots of different projects which looked at natural solutions, such as our developing woodland enterprise zones, offshore renewable energy, and developing employment and green skills, and also other projects such as aquaculture. Green Ranger, who's setting up activities to help engage people who might be precluded from taking nature connection.
That's what the Hero 6 has got, is it?
One of our big projects that we've just kicked off recently is called Critter, which is the coordinated response to the intertidal tour and forest estuary restoration. So it's a funded project through the Environment Agency, where we're looking to create new salt marsh and creating new grazing marsh, but we're also supporting landowners with sustainable farming advice, such as regenerative agriculture, biodiversity improvements, and natural flood defence. And we've got a target of creating over 100 hectares of new habitats. And we're looking at other projects, which are, for instance, the experimental seagrass restoration site, which will help to sequester carbon. We also have our Devon Woods project, and that's all about creating new woodland across Devon, but we've got a lot of projects we'll be focusing in North Devon. And that's looking to plant over 350 hectares of woodland, which is going to help with controlling diffuse pollution from farms such as phosphates, also to help hold water back in the catchments, so that will help to alleviate issues from flooding because of climate change, for instance. And of course, planting trees, as we all know, helps to sequester carbon. So we're supporting landowners planting new woodlands and accessing grants such as the England Woodland Creation Offer. And this project is our Smart Biosphere project. So this is quite exciting development as part of a sort of environmental improvement, is how we collect data and use new ways of modelling. And so this project is placing environmental sensors out in the landscape. And this is in the Umber catchment, so towards Combe Martin. So we're actually going to be creating environmental sensors which will take data for us, and it's quite sort of technical, which I don't pretend that I know anything about, but it's all to do with artificial intelligence and modelling. So we'll be able to create what's called a digital twin. So we can monitor what's going on with environmental issues and create a sort of idea of what's happening from sort of pollution incidents, and look at projects about smart agriculture and smart catchment services, which we're hoping that we can use this sort of approach right across the biosphere. And the reason why I wanted to mention this project in particular is once we have that data, and that data can be open sourced and available in the community, it's going to be a really powerful tool for local communities to see at a sort of granular level what's going on with issues of pollution and what they can do to help the environment locally. And it might be, for instance, you take that data, it could be used for lobbying and things like that. I'm not suggesting that you do that being from the biosphere, but potentially if that data is open source and we can use that, it's going to give us a lot of information that we can really use to drive a lot of projects forward and focus our efforts as well. And I hope you've all heard of our Pledge for Nature campaign, and hopefully you've already signed up. But if you haven't, this is all about getting individuals, businesses, schools, local organisations and local authorities and parish councils to make a pledge for nature. So it might be something as simple as putting a bird box up, or it might be something a bit more complicated, like a nature recovery plan for your parish, for instance. So we've gathered over 700 pledges now, so I'd really encourage you all to sign up to this. And it could be anything from helping out at a local conservation event, or creating a wildflower meadow, or putting up a bird or bat box, or getting involved with citizen science projects to help with recording habitat and wildlife in our area, which gives us a picture of what's happening with nature in our area. And we currently have a number of small grants available, but the deadline for that is the 31st of March. So if you have got an idea or a project that you're doing for your local community, then please do get in touch with us as soon as possible. So what's happening next? So we're currently developing our marine nature recovery plan, and we're engaging with lots of different stakeholders to develop that plan to protect the marine environment and to look at the conservation of key species in North Devon. And then our other project, which is very exciting, is the reintroduction of water voles in Braunton, and we've got an event coming up in a couple of weeks actually, which is going to be at the Countryside Centre, and we've got Derek Gow. I don't know if any of you have ever heard of him, but he's a rewilding expert, so he's been advising us on that project. So we're working with local farmers and local landowners to see what we can do to improve the habitat, and hopefully have the reintroduction of water voles in Braunton, which is very exciting. And just here are some of the things that we've got coming up. So we've got a marine accreditation workshop, which is tomorrow actually. So if you are a local provider or business and want to know more about how you can get accredited to help wildlife and wildlife tourism as part of your business, please do come along to that. And we've got a couple of experiential tourism workshops. So the other projects that I didn't mention about, we've had our biocultural heritage tourism project, which is all about how we can promote sustainable tourism in the local area, but also make the most of nature as well, and promote nature and encourage sustainable behaviours when people come here to visit. So we've got 2 workshops coming up on that. I think one's at Skern Lodge, another local business as well. And we've got our nature recovery for your community. So it's, if you're a parish councillor, you might like to come and attend that to see what you could do to encourage nature in your parish. And then, as I mentioned, we've got the reintroduction of the Braunton water voles, hopefully. So that will be with Derek Gower here in a couple of weeks. So hope you can all attend that. And yeah, just to finish on a note to say, well done to Claire and all the team. It's been fantastic working with you through the North Devon biosphere. And I think, the key is really about nature connection, but nature connection and engagement for local communities as well is going to be key, and working in partnership to tackle some of these solutions at a local level, we can really make a difference. So well done.
This is exciting, but
Public speaking. That's good.
So this is the formal part of the charity. It's only our second. I think I said this at the beginning. It's our second AGM. The first was last year, the virtual. So second one this year. We need to receive and consider the accounts. I think the accounts are available.
Yeah, shall I just?
On them. Can you just briefly?
So all of the stuff that Claire told you about, we think with the grand total of £43,383, which I think.
There we are. There's Drew.
So that was our income for the year ending 31st March 2020.
Couldn't get far enough away.
Copies of the accounts over there, so you have a look. There's our income and expenditure and our balance sheet. So please feel free to have a look. And they're also available on our website and on the Charity Commission website.
See how it blows out the.
So yeah, they're presented to at our AGM adoption.
Yeah, closure.
To say they're happy with them.
Yeah. And any issues? I know you've all read them.
If anyone has got any questions about money.
Oh, good morning.
And
Wasn't too bad. Yeah, it's only 6 hours. Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah. What do we do with the panic?
I'd like to propose that.
Andy's. Thank you, Andy. To reappoint Nathan Groves. You had that on there.
Cereal, so I'll have my
Yeah. Reappointment of Andy Clee. And the reappointment of Lynn Strong for a third period of the year.
Absolutely not.
Well, you ate the bananas in there, I'm just telling you right now.
Today.
Yeah.
Has anyone got any questions?
I'll have a banana at breakfast.
Yeah, or any questions or
Yeah.
comments or?
I can say very quick, why and just
Yeah, I've got it.
Yeah. The nice and a bit warmer. It's still high tide, pretty high tide.
This is really quick thing. But I knew it was the AGM today, and then a couple of days ago, someone suggested that you can make tables from plastic. So I thought that I know it's not environmental, but everyone's still uses it, and if it uses that load of waste plastic, you
Well, we actually go Thursday morning next week.
Anyway, I just thought it was
Yeah, I like it.
it's a good day, better than Monday, because Mondays,
The tennis is better on Thursday.
Your daughter's actually took me off.
what did she say?
She said, "Oh yeah, Mum would like to take pictures of her." take it to Dad with his car.
I know. Sorry, wrong place, wrong time. We can ask. Yeah, we don't.
Sorry.
It's too big, yeah. I have to use the 1740.
Really interesting to see what you've done over
Well,
last
40
year.
is amazing.
What math
What I've
work
got on at the moment. It's so fast, so sharp.
well. Very proud of the biosphere. I think it'll be really interesting to see how everyone connects. Like you said, it's about being a collective. So I just really like to say thank you for this really, really interesting and useful, and thank you for the art.
Oh, no, thank you.
You also make Claire cry.
Yeah.
I'm not crying.
2.8.
Any other questions, or I'll bring the meeting to a close, I think.
If anyone wants to put their email down for more information on it, I'll put my name mostly, so it's all came tonight. But if there's anyone that don't know that wants to get involved, then just put your hands up. We'll email you.
Well, we had burgers, but we took, they were
Thanks
better
for coming.
burgers.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. Supporting us.
Christina's advice. They were very good, yeah.
Martin's in Sydney. 6 o'clock in the morning. Oh, really? Yeah. You tuned in. Sydney. I asked if they could hear, and they said yeah. She didn't turn up. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, they got. Yeah. There's been a lot of back and forth. Right. How do I?
Well done, guys.
Woo, yeah, done. Right, well done, thank you.
That's terrible. Access or anything.
No, you weren't. It's really good. The problem is biosphere is so much to talk about. It's like
First time I've done a biosphere talk as
Yeah.
well, so I need to get a bit more practice.
no, you're fine. And actually, maybe someone like Andy probably would have gone into
Yeah.
You know, what you need is like a kind of overall view of things.
Yeah,
It's
that's
actually
what I was
really
trying
good.
to make it.
Yeah. Thank you, that's brilliant. Yeah, it did.
Zoom works okay?
Yeah, it did. Yeah. I wasn't. Well, the only problem is I had 2 people in the waiting room. Luckily, I had one person's number, but the other person I didn't. And the mouse, I couldn't move the mouse.
I think what I
think you might have to.
we had 2 computers and then I had one person as a co-host, so
That's what I
they
should
were
have done.
like managing. I should have
Yes.
said to you.
I didn't even really think about how to do it actually.
It's difficult doing hybrid events.
Yeah. Anyway. I think it was quite a good turnout.